What's up, Internet? You're tuned into a very special episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello.
Hello, Steve. So before we get into this, right, it's episode 44. It's our Summer Games Fest Part 1 breakdown special. I don't know what but we're going through a bunch of events from the Summer Games Fest so far, including Summer Games Fest Live, Day of the Devs, Devolver Digital, Netflix Geeked, and Epic Games presentations. So we've got a lot of hot video game news to discuss. But before we get into that, before we get into the plugs, before we get into anything, Steve, I have to ask you something. When you were watching the Summer Games Fest, did you catch that Jeff Keighley ripped us off?
No, I didn't. Did he really?
In the intro to the Summer Games Fest, he said, "Oh, we're here to explore the wide world of video games," and I was like, "You son of a bitch! That's my thing." Now everyone's gonna think I'm ripping off Jeff Keighley. Unbelievable, Jeff. Consummate professional. I've always respected the guy. Unbelievable. Just coming out here, just stealing from the little guy. Come on, Jeff.
I like the idea that Jeff listens to the podcast, to be honest, so I'm fine with it. Hi, Jeff.
My thing is, hi, Jeff. Hope, glad to hear you're a fan of the show. Where's my invite? I could have come in and been awkward on stage for 20 seconds or something, Come on. So I'm just saying, call me up to the big leagues, Jeff.
Yeah, and while you're here, Jeff, go over to patreon.com/FlipScreenGames and you can drop us a bit of support.
You can join
a Patreon producer.
You can become a Patreon producer and join the illustrious company of one Mary Berry. Get it on the ground floor. Now's the time. So anyway, like I said, we are going a whole run today, going through all of the announcements that we thought were worth chatting about from all of these shows. Of course, our whole schedule for this podcast is thrown off by this week, so we'll have another extra episode for you this week, dropping Sunday afternoon-ish at some point tomorrow, because you're getting this on Saturday. We're all over the place, but we'll be there tomorrow with our Xbox reactions. We already have an episode all about the PlayStation show. We've got a bunch of our live reactions to a couple different presentations, including Summer Games Fest, Devolver, and then the Epic Games show. So a bunch of that stuff is already live and up on our YouTube channel. So if you're over on the YouTube channel, make sure you go check that stuff out if you haven't seen it already. Give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe. However you choose to engage, follow along, listen to the show. We appreciate you. If this is your first time tuning in, thanks for joining us. This is normally a different kind of show, but if you like this episode, you'll like the regular show. So we'll get into all the good stuff here in a second. But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of June. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we appreciate your support of this fine show. If you want to show your support for the show, but you don't have any money to toss our way, not a problem. There are a bunch of ways that you can engage with the show absolutely for free. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to our Twitch channel. If you want to catch our next live stream, our next live reacts, again, that'll be tomorrow for the Xbox stuff if you're listening to this the day it drops. We're there every week, streaming games, streaming events. It's a good time. Come hang out with us. You can get a bunch of other content from us all over the web. Remember, that's flipscreen.games for the website. Come join the Discord, right into the show, be a part of the community. However you choose to get involved, we're glad to have you here. So, let's get into it. We're going to kick things off with the Summer Games Fest Live. And of course, because there are so many of these shows to go through, we're kind of going to just be cherry picking the things that we were interested in talking about. So not going to be going in chronological order. The assumption here is that you've already caught the show or you don't care about spoilers, right? So this one being the one, unfortunately, the biggest piece of news that Summer Games Fest had in its chamber leaked just a few hours before the show. Huge disappointment, I'm sure, for Jeff and company. But that is, of course, the news that The Last of Us Part 1, the from the ground up remake of the original Last of Us that has been oh so heavily rumored the last couple months is in fact real, and it is coming this fall. I believe it was. Do you have the date in front of you, Steve? It was October
2nd of September, isn't it?
Oh, is it okay? I thought it was October 2nd. Excuse me. So even sooner than I thought. So obviously big news, one that people had been kind of waiting on, and I think it's been one of those like kind of poorly kept secrets, right? Cool to finally get the confirmation there. Obviously some mixed reactions around the web to this news. Where are you at with this, Steve? Before we get into the rest of the nitty gritty, from what we saw, from knowing that it's just a couple months away, are you excited for this?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I was actually really gutted for Jeff, because obviously this was the big like one more thing at the end of the show. We had Neil Druckmann come out on stage. We had Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson there, and really, really sad that it kind of got spoiled. But we did see some other bits, like there was the stuff about like the HBO action show, and we'll talk about the multiplayer and what that's become as well. But my God, the trailer for this had me so excited, because I booted up the Last of Us on PS5 a couple of weeks ago, actually, because I was we'll talk about it on a future episode, but I'm on a bit of a zombie binge at the moment. I'm playing Days Gone. I've played some Resident Evil, and I was like, I want to see what this game looks like. And I forgot that was a PS3 game that then got ported to PS4, and then now playing it on PS5. The remake just looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm so excited for it. Whether I pick it up on PS5 at launch or if I wait for the PC version, the fact that they announced right at the beginning that it's in development for PC as well, I think was really exciting. And I know a bunch of people have said, on Twitter and whatever, I can't see the difference. What's the difference? And I'm just like, are you blind? Like, this looks like such a massive step up in terms of quality. And like the cutscenes, what I didn't realize, because one of the Naughty Dog devs took to Twitter to kind of reply to some of this discourse around it, that all of the cutscenes in the original game were pre-rendered. So this will look like even more of a step up in terms of actual gameplay, because the majority of the trailer seemed to be the cutscenes. And I think once we see actual moment-to-moment gameplay, I think we'll be able to see, wow, this is a step up even on The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I found that discourse to be very weird. The whole like, oh, I can't tell the difference. It's like, really, dog? Like, it's doing side-by-side comparison, and I've seen people being like, oh, if it wasn't a side-by-side comparison, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And I don't quite understand that. I think it clearly looks much sharper. But I think, like, even, all of that aside, right? Because, like, I also totally get being the person who's like, well, I don't care, right? Like, the game already looked good. It didn't need this level of graphical overhaul, and that's something that is, like, for some folks, that's a big difference maker. For some folks, it's a nice to have and not something that really is going to impact the way that they engage with the game. But
there's other changes,
that's
though,
the
right?
thing, is everybody's underselling that, right? Where it's like, it's being remade in the engine for Last of Us Part 2 with all of the learnings that Naughty Dog as a studio had from Uncharted 4 and from Last of Us Part 2. And, they said that there's going to be...
Hopefully the gunplay is a significant step up, because the gunplay on those old Naughty Dog games was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will be, right? And like they promised new AI, new combat, 60 FPS, all of the animations for the new cutscenes and everything, and the in-game stuff is built on the original performance capture, but
which was so cool. Like, they showed that on stage, and how like it transforms of when like they showed the original and then like they swiped over to it on top of like the new models. Like, all of the models are different, and you can tell they're different. Like, Joel looks very different. I didn't realize how different he looked from the first game to the second game. And Neil spoke about that, this is close to our original vision of what we wanted to, but we couldn't achieve it on the PS3 back then.
Yeah, and I just, in general, I think it's the kind of thing that, like, there's so many opinions about it that I feel like are not really, like, that interested in paying attention to like the reality of what this is versus the narrative that people are spinning around it, where it's like, why are they remaking this? There's all these other games that I want them to remake. It's like, well, this is going to sell well. There's an HBO show coming out.
And
they want to have this ready to sell on PC. Like,
yeah,
it's
I think is such a big thing that people are ignoring. The fact that they announced this is in development for PC at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we know they want to bring The Last of Us Part 2 to PC. It sold 10 million copies. How many more is it going to sell when it comes to PC? You know, God of War's already sold 1 million copies in 6 months. Last of Us is going to sell absolute shitloads. Plus, they're already bringing Uncharted, like the latest collection, right? Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy to PC. Presumably, this uses a similar, if not the same, engine as that game. This, by bringing it into the new engine, means they can port those 3 games in one hit over to the PC without having to port multiple engines. So yeah, there's more dev work up front, but one, you get the bonus of being able to sell a $70, $80, and $100 variant of the game on PS5, and you can then sell the game on PC and more easily port over The Last of Us Part 2, which is in the exact same engine.
And then the other thing I wanted to call out, and this is like more of a context thing. This isn't a thing I would expect people to know, but I think it is worth pointing out. I've also seen a lot of people expressing like complaint that it's like, why is Naughty Dog working on this? I want Naughty Dog to be working on a new game. I want new IP from them, or I want a new Last of Us, or a new this, or like new Uncharted, whatever, right? Whatever non-this project you want Naughty Dog to be working on. If you have read Jason Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, where they get into some of the development of Uncharted 4, as well as Jason's reporting around, around this Last of Us remake, you'd understand that Naughty Dog as a studio, and I mean, Neil said as much in the presentation, right? They've grown in size quite a bit. They have multiple teams now working on multiple projects. So Neil is directing a new game, seemingly a new IP in a new series. They've been teasing
I was
that.
happy to hear that, because I thought he'd taken a bit of a step back when he became president of Naughty Dog. Like, I thought there was going to be a case of, all right, he's moving into that more managerial, overseeing all of the projects role. But to hear that he's actually coming up with a new IP himself, working on a fresh new project, was really nice.
Sounds like he's doing both, yeah. Which I think is probably a good thing. So with that in mind, right, they are working on what's next. They are working on their next big project. But if you've read the book or Jason's coverage, you'd understand that historically, after a big project, Naughty Dog lays a bunch of people off, and this is common, right? That's just a thing in games development. And you have to like lay off all these people that you just hired and trained and taught your tools, and you've acclimated to the culture. And then when it's time to ramp up on your next project, you got to go through that whole process all over again. And that's a thing that like not just Naughty Dog, but a lot of, bigger AAA studios have been trying to minimize churn, and that like we're losing people, we're getting people back, and like that's just turbulent. So with this project, one of the things that they talked about is, well, there's no quote unquote creative required for this, right? Like you don't need to wait for a script or new art or any of these things, right? It's just like you can have all the folks that are the boots on the ground, technical, type folks who are the first ones to get laid off when the crunch period ends and it's time to ideate the next project. They didn't have to do that. They were able to just move. A bunch of them moved on to the multiplayer project, and a bunch of them moved on to this remake. And now when, whatever the new IP is, or, whatever the next big original Naughty Dog project is, ideally these projects will end and then they can all move on to that, right? Or a certain team will stay on and develop, factions and what have you. So, this isn't taking away development resources from something new, because that new thing is probably still in pre-production, right? It's probably not ready to be being coded yet. They're probably still figuring out what's the world, what's the story, who's the main character, what does it look like, what's the art direction, like all those things, right? That takes a long time. And if you're Naughty Dog, you're going to take your time with it because you can, they have that cachet.
Well, I think that was the whole reason behind DLC, right? That was one of the reasons like studios were doing these like expansions for games so you can keep the teams busy while they move on to other projects. One thing I will say specifically about this that we spoke about off mic, and this obviously is based on Jason Schreier's reporting, and whether we believe that or not, I fundamentally do believe it, that another team was working on this game, this remake of The Last of Us. That whole team then got like disbanded, laid off. It was
That was
like
not a Naughty Dog team, though. That was a different
it wasn't. It was a
studio.
team within Sony. It was one of the Sony studios. They kind of got closed down. They got shut down, and Naughty Dog took on ownership of the project. So there were layoffs surrounding this project, and I know that that yes, this will mitigate layoffs within Naughty Dog, but other people did. You know, there is still always a human cost to
Absolutely.
development, which I think needs to be considered. But I'm excited about this game. I didn't think I would be. I think I was in the boat when we heard this announcement. I think we kind of both were, which was just like, why does it need a remake other than like, I don't think it visually looks that bad. But now having seen it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm excited for this to be able to play part one and Left Behind because that was included in there. And what I'm really excited to see is Left Behind still a standalone thing, or are they going to integrate it into the game, which I hope they do. Because remember, there's that bit where
Yeah.
they're in where like Ellie and Joel are they're behind the shutters and it switches over the gameplay. That's in Left Behind, and you don't see that in the main game, and you play it in the DLC. I hope they integrate that into the
I
gameplay.
hope it's at least an option, right? Like if
Yeah.
they don't make that the default, it would be really cool if there's like a director's version or like some
Hmm.
cute name for it where it's like you can play this and Left Behind is just integrated into the narrative and you can have that seamless part 1, part 2 experience. Yeah, I'm in the same boat where like I never thought of this as something that I needed, right? It was never like, oh yeah, like clearly The Last of Us needs a remake. But it's like, I don't know, like it makes sense, right? It makes sense from a business perspective. It makes sense that once this show comes out, they're going to want this definitive way to play these games and have them be cohesive and feel like you're just playing two games that came out versus two games that came out 10 years apart, or 8 years apart, whatever it was. I get not being jazzed for it, but the overall kind of like confusion and characterization of it as being like a bad choice and all these things. It's like, I mean, the $100 collector's edition sold out in a day. So
Yeah, and I don't like that, right? I do feel like the pricing on this is too high. It kind of feels like they're price gouging the most hardcore fans because, as you said, there's no like creative involved in the quote unquote creative involved in this.
yeah,
It's
not to say
not
that there's
a
no
ground
no
up.
creativity. Like
Yeah.
what we mean by that is pre-production. You already have a game made. You have
Yeah,
a
you've got a
roadmap to
game.
follow.
You've done all of the like mocap, the voice acting, the music, all of it's done. You've got a basis for the game. You can, all of that like hard work before you start on like the modeling, the level design, all of that stuff is done. And so to charge this at the same price as a full price original game, like something like a Ratchet and Clank or a Spider-Man or a Ghost of Tsushima or whatever. I can see why people are a little bit taken aback by that. Like $70 is a lot of money. Like you're charging for something where a lot of this was already done. It's going to be the same
It
price as
feels
The
like
Last
this
of Us
should be in
Part
the
2.
miles category. Like it feels like it
Yes,
should
I
be
agree.
$10 cheaper, because
Yeah.
like not to say that it's not like worth $70 per se. It's more just like
But for the $70
it didn't take that
on
same level of
on Spider-Man
resources.
Miles, yeah, but like for $70 on Spider-Man Miles Morales, you got both games for that price, right?
Yeah.
You got the remastered version and you got Miles Morales. If this was a bundle and it's like you get this and The Last of Us Part 2, I could see that being like a fairly good deal. Maybe the $100 version, you get both of the games or
I think
something.
that would
But
make sense to me. If it was the $100 version was a boxed, like it's The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 and you get it in like a nice like that, I'd be like, yeah, that seems fair for $100. I think that would actually probably be too good of a deal though, because then you're only really charging what, like $40 for it, and like not to say that that's like that would feel good, but I'm sure that they're probably like, no, we're not doing that. That's insane,
Yeah, but to charge $140 for those two games, which is what they will charge, right?
Yeah. Well, I
$70 a
mean,
piece.
no,
A lot of
though,
money.
because The Last of Us doesn't cost that much. You like even if you because there is no PS5
I'd
version.
imagine the PS5 version, which inevitably will come out, will cost that much though.
Will it though? Because isn't there already a 60 FPS patch for Last of Us Part 2 on PS5?
I guess, but I mean, imagine there's still stuff they could do with that. I'm surprised we haven't seen a director's cut of that game. To be honest, I thought we would have seen one where they've like patched in
I don't
the
know.
controller support, and
Maybe
I feel like they'd want it in a PS5 box on a shelf at some point.
probably. I don't know what that would entail. You know, because the only two director's cuts that we've gotten have had significant amounts of new content added to the game, right? I don't care what you say, the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, right? Like I can't speak to Death Stranding because I just haven't played it, but like the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut is essentially they charged you $10 for DLC. That's not a bad deal, right? The idea of them being like, hey, The Last of Us Part 2 is getting a director's cut, but there's nothing new added because we already gave you all the patches and everything. It's like, okay. I mean, I hope not, right? I think that would be a bad look. But I mean, theoretically, right? If you bought The Last of Us Part 2 full price right now, it should be $60. So
Yes, I'm very curious as to see what they could do with it, right? Because it looks like there's still The Last of Us Part 2 is still locked at like 1440p because it's running in the PS4 container, so it can't go any higher than that. You can't get a true 4K version of it. There's obviously no ray tracing in there that they could potentially add. You can't get up to 120 frames per second. There's a lot of features you
I
can't
wonder if they're
tap
going to
into
announce.
unless it's a PS5 version.
Yeah, you're right. I wonder if they're going to announce that stuff's coming, like at some point.
I think it's going to have to at some point, right? Because people are going to want The Last of Us Part 1, The Last of Us Part 2 on PS5. I would imagine it'll come at the same time they bring The Last of Us Part 2 to PC. And it'll probably be in tandem. You got Part 1 on the PC, here's Part 2 on the PC as well. Because there's no doubt in my mind that's where they're going with the PC stuff. The fact that they announced this for PC at the same time as the PS5 version is being announced,
100%.
They're going in big on PC.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that, right? I think this being the first big game announcement where they said, oh, it's coming to PC, like, from the jump is, like, that's very new. That's new language from them, which is cool. But we've talked about The Last of Us for, like, 20 minutes now, so I'm going to wrap us up here with a couple other things. So we also got the announcement that The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer, so Factions, which is what people have been popularly calling it, because the original game had a multiplayer mode called Factions, is now a standalone game. They gave us a piece of concept art. It takes place in a new American city. It looks like it's San Francisco, because you can see...
It's definitely San Francisco. It's the Golden Gate Bridge.
That's the Golden Gate Bridge, right?
Yeah.
And they said that there's going to be a story, and it's going to be told in a new, unique way to anything that they've ever done before, but that it will have a story with a new cast of characters, and that it will be like a Last of Us narrative and everything. Not really any more information on it beyond that, except the fact that it apparently is that we're going to get a look at it next year. They didn't outright say it was coming next year, but they said that we would see it next year. So
I think this is way earlier in development than anyone thought. It sounds like they threw out everything they had and started from scratch. The fact that we've only seen concept art for it at this stage, when it's presumably been in development for 2 to 3 years at this point,
that's not that long.
I would have expected it to be a little bit further along. You can't. I've got to imagine that they were like working on this while they were working on The Last of Us Part 2.
I'm pretty sure they confirmed they weren't.
Like,
I'm pretty sure, and
well, were they not? Okay.
Granted, grain of salt, right? This is me remembering reports that I read 2 years ago, but my understanding was that I believe I remember Neil saying that during development, they decided that the Factions mode, they were going to put it on ice and have it come out later because they wanted to put 100% of their effort behind making the main single-player experience be as pristine as it could be, and that was why the plan was the multiplayer mode's going to come out later. And then the way that Neil talked about it was that it grew in scope and they decided to spin it off into its own thing. And that like the team was really
fair enough.
Eager to do something different.
I'm excited to see what it's like. I feel like The Last of Us is ripe for like a live service game if they can pull this
People
off
love
in a
factions.
little better. Yeah, like if this pulls off in a similar way to Fallout 76, but obviously better out of the gate with NPCs with a good story that you can follow. I can see myself wanting to live in that world, survive, build out my own camp, do all of that kind of thing.
I like the idea of a
and you can see this.
multiplayer. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, I like the idea of a multiplayer experience feeding into a story because I feel like that is a good carrot, right? Because that's one of the things with multiplayer games is like, what's the thing that motivates you to keep playing, right? It's got to be fun, but also it's like, is it the loot grind? Is it, leveling up and raising your rank? Like, I like the idea of it being a story because then even if you're not that good at the game, you're motivated to play and contribute and be like, I want to get the cutscene. I want to know what the next thing is.
That's how I used to play Destiny. I was never really massively bothered about the loop. I wasn't really bothered about playing with other people and doing like raids and things. It was I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed seeing the world, the cutscenes, finding out the lore of the various different races and things like that. And it was fun. It was exciting. And I feel like if they can pull that off in the same way in The Last of Us, especially when Bungie comes on board and shares their knowledge through Sony's like Live Service Center for Excellence or whatever they called it. I feel like it could be really good. Especially if they get some of Bungie's gunplay in there, because they are, I feel like, the best in the business at making a shooter feel incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me on that one. I think there's other people in that conversation, but there's something about the way Bungie makes guns, man. Like the pistol in Halo 1, I think is still like the shotgun in Halo, right? Like it just feels good. So yeah, no disagreements from me on that one. And we got a little bit more news about the show. They said it's coming next year. We got a screenshot. We learned that Neil directed an episode. Apparently, he said that he can guarantee that it will be the most authentic video game adaptation to date, and he's very happy with the ways in which they've captured the spirit of the game.
You don't worry about that just means it's the exact same story and the same beats and the same, like, because we saw the scene and it was just like one of the places that we've actually been to in the game. I feel like if I'm going to play the game on PS5 later this year and uncover the story once again, do I give a shit about watching this on HBO next year?
I think I'm of two minds there. For starters, I think an HBO show appeals to people that are never going to play a video game, right? Like there are folks that will watch this show and could get into it who are like not gamers and might never have ever engaged with it otherwise. So there's value in that. But I think aside from that, as someone who's a fan of Robert Kirkman, right? You'd be familiar with him for The Walking Dead and Invincible. Something that he's done, right, with his adaptations that I think have worked really well is, okay, right, the TV show version of The Walking Dead or the TV show version of Invincible. They have a lot of the same characters. There are some of the same beats, but it's essentially like telling an alternate universe version of the same story where it'll be like, and again, using The Walking Dead because it's like a very popular example, right? Norman Reedus' character, Daryl, right, is like one of the main characters in The Walking Dead TV show. He's been around since the beginning. He's not in the book. So, like, that's already a thing that's fundamentally different, right? And it's like there are certain characters who are portrayed one way in the comic and a very different way in the TV show, so they take different actions because they're essentially a different person, even if maybe some of the same beats happen to them, like there's characters that die in the first few issues of The Walking Dead that exist for seasons and seasons in the show. So it's like, I'm sure that there will be beats that are familiar, right? Like the museum or like, when they get like stopped at that roadway in the first game. Like I think there's going to maybe the giraffes, right?
Cannibals.
I think there's going to be, what was that?
Cannibals.
Sure, right? Like I think a lot of those things will happen, but it's like, will they happen in the same way? Will they be portrayed in the same, like there's a lot you can do to capture the essence of a story without just being like doing a shot for shot retelling.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I do worry that it's just going to be like, I feel like I've seen this, and I like fair enough. It's faithful. It's good. I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna watch it. I want to watch it. I want to see what Troy and Ashley are doing in there. Maybe they are the
Yeah,
cannibals.
it's
I can
interesting that
feel that.
they were confirmed to have roles, which is cool.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll
I
see
feel
what
like
happens,
Ashley
right?
could be a good Tess at the beginning, like
Oh, that would be awesome.
leading them through. Like I feel like it would be a good like transition
That would be
into
cool. Have Joel play
yeah.
Tommy. Or not
Hmm.
Joel, sorry.
Troy.
Have Troy to play Tommy. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic for it. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some of the other news. We got another look at the Callisto Protocol. We got I forget the name of the director, but they had like essentially a director's cut of the trailer with more gore. Holy shit, dude. This game is so fucking brutal. It is like the most visceral shit I feel like I've ever seen in a
I'm
video.
so excited.
The part where it just like ate that man's face in half was just like,
Oh yeah, he
what
gets
the
like
hell?
pulled into the machine. It looks so cool.
So
I know
brutal.
some about this game. I'm so excited for it. Like
It looks
the
sick.
gun that like pulls the enemies towards you, and then you can like fuck them up, and then
It's
like shoot them
literally
away with the gun again.
It's literally the force pull. It reminded me of
It's
of
I feel like it was Control. Like
yeah.
Remedy's Control, where you like pull them up in the air, and you can
Mhm.
like fling them with your hands.
It
And
just
stuff,
reminded
but
me
you're
of
using like a gun.
it reminded me of grabbing the stormtroopers and flinging them in
Yeah.
any Star Wars game, right? But like Jedi, being the most recent one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I can play this game, but it looks phenomenal. I mean, there was a lot of talk around the web, and even Jeff made fun of it in the of like so many of these games were space horror or space horror, but I think this is the one that stands out, right? Like this game looks fresh.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this. I've never played Dead Space, and I feel like this is going to eat the Dead Space remakes lunch. I feel like it's in every way a step up. Obviously it's the same team, or some of the team beyond, like it's the same team, right? And they've learned from it. They've learned from Dead Space, and they've come and used this learning and expanded upon it.
No doubt.
What I can tell,
It looks awesome. But don't sell the Dead Space folks out just yet. Who knows?
I'm not gonna sell it. I'm not gonna. But I feel like we haven't seen anything of that game yet.
Oh, it's
It's
early
due out in
days.
January. It's due out in January, a month after Callisto Protocol. We'll see if they hit that, or if they decide to move the date. I feel
they
like
should
they're
delay
probably gonna want to move it.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I don't think you're going to want to be looking at these games a month apart, because even if they're both great, like somebody's got to be a winner, and like
You know what? I feel like we're gonna get fatigue on this genre because Fort Solis is another one that's basically the same, right? That's the one with Troy Baker and who's the guy that plays?
he's in Red Dead 2.
Yeah, he's in Red Dead.
I can't think of his name.
Roger Clark.
Yes.
So it's got those two in. It was really weird. I love Roger Clark's voice. I think he's got an amazing voice.
Great actor,
new
yeah.
team out of Europe, as Jeff said, that one whole country, Europe. No idea where they're from.
Well, then my interpretation of that is that they're a remote team.
They're spread out, yeah. And they said this was entirely built during COVID times, which was really impressive. A new team built and developed this game throughout the pandemic. Probably never worked together in an office. And the fact that they were able to
Whatever.
pull
We've
it
been doing
off
the
was
same thing for
awesome.
years. We're a global organization here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Didn't look anywhere near as good as Callisto Protocol for me, but it might be a different kind of game. It looks like some shit.
It looks
breaks
more
out on
like
Mars.
story driven than like
Yeah.
action driven, which not to say that the Callisto Protocol doesn't have a good, interesting story. It seems to. But
Did you know the Callisto Protocol was originally meant to have taken space in the PUBG universe?
oh yeah. Fuck, I forgot about that. Yeah, I saw them tweet
How
about that
weird
the
is
other
that?
day, and I was like, what the fuck? Why?
Yeah, it no longer takes place in the PUBG universe. And I don't know how, looking at that game, it could have ever have taken place in the PUBG universe. Like, what were they smoking when they came up with that concept?
What even is the PUBG universe? Right? Like,
I feel like that was their idea of like a Fortnite metaverse, wasn't it?
maybe. I don't know. Dude, rest in peace, PUBG. Yeah, what a fall from grace, right? Like, that game was like everywhere. It was like such a
Yeah.
moment, and it just died. It's so like, does anyone play that game anymore? I don't feel like I know a single person that still plays that game. It's nuts, really nuts.
Probably people that own iPhones because we can't play Fortnite on them.
Okay, good for them, I guess. We also got a look at a new Alien game called Aliens: Dark Descent. This was a funny one because it looks like it's like an RTS or like like a tactical.
It's an XCOM game.
I'm not sure if it's one or the other, honestly, but like it looks like one of those two. But they're pretty similar either way, right? Like it's a top-down kind of thing, and it's funny because the whole trailer is like a cinematic trailer, and they showed like 2 seconds of actual gameplay from the top. But I remember while it was happening, I was watching it with my fiance, and she was kind of like, "Oh, like I could get into like an Alien game. Like this seems interesting." And then I was like, "Yeah, I wish I knew what kind of game it was though, because like this is just cinematic. Like I really feel like this might be like a tactical game or something." And then they showed that, and I was like, "Oh my god, wait, fuck!" I guess it
I
was.
really hate it. Like I was talking, I spoke about it with Chewy on the stream, which you can go check out on YouTube if you want to see our live reactions. But I despise trailers like this where you see hardly any gameplay, you don't know what it is, it's just cinematics. And I know there's a balance that needs to be striked, right? You need to be able to show the story beats and show the vision of what you're
I think
doing.
in a licensed
Cinematics
game,
are
though,
cool.
I have way less patience for that, right? Like, it's like,
Yes.
I know what
We know
Alien is.
Alien. I know the Alien universe. Just show me. But yeah, it is very much Eurogamer reporting it's an XCOM-esque base
Let's go.
expansion component game. So
I'm
you go out and you fight aliens.
I'm excited for that. Don't get me wrong. I like those games. I will play this game, I imagine. But I would have liked to see more of the gameplay.
Me too. Also, I would have loved this to have been something like The Ascent, where it's like a top-down twin stick shooter,
That I don't
Diablo
want.
style thing. I would have loved that. Would have been great.
You Diablo fans, you know. So there's a couple things I wanted to just like quickly touch on, just to kind of like make fun of, because overall, like, I think in a vacuum there are a lot of good announcements from this show, but this was not a good presentation. The pacing was very off. It was
Some
kind of
really awkward moments with like the devs on stage and stuff.
and it was a
just like,
slog, man. Like I didn't watch this live. I had to catch it time shifted because I was working while
how
it was on.
fortunate for you.
Yeah, because I fast forwarded through a lot of it, and it was still long. Like there was like, I mean, you guys were joking. You're like, oh, it was like a half hour of Call of Duty, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, it's not a half hour, but it's pretty close. It's like 15, 20
It was
minutes.
like 15, 20 minutes of Call
Yeah.
of Duty, and it was literally just like an unnarrated. We're going to show you a mission that you've already seen on the All rig from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It was bizarre. I don't understand why they spent so long on it. They could have done like you know how Nintendo do it, where they're just like, we're gonna now do rather than focusing on this and taking up the whole presentation, we're gonna do another presentation on it. I felt like Call of
We're
Duty
gonna go to
could have had its
the
own
treehouse.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was like a
it's like
treehouse
the treehouse.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. But definitely the weirdest part of the show was 100% the appearance by The Rock, which just made no. It was
Oh my
like
God,
it was
yeah.
like fucking so. And like I like The Rock. No disrespect to The Rock, but like, what the hell?
Quite
You just,
literally
like,
phoned it in.
it was like a weird.
It was like,
He's like in the gym with no shirt, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Yo, all right, check out my new energy drink, the Rock energy drink. Also, I'm in Black Adam. Also, I'm in a video game. Here's a trailer." And it's just like, and it was not even a trailer for a game. It was for Black Adam, the DC movie. And it's just like, The Rock was just here to just pimp everything he's in the next like 3 months, and then it's peace. It was so weird.
I thought he was going to be on stage. When Jeff announced that The Rock was at Summer Game Fest, I thought he was going to be on stage, he was going to present something, he was going to talk to Jeff. But it genuinely felt like, you know, when people go on Cameo and they pay a celebrity to do a video and wish like their friend happy birthday. It was like Jeff went on Cameo and was like, I'm going to pay The Rock $500 or whatever to come and say something at Summer Game Fest.
That is.
It was honestly
how it
so
felt.
weird.
But like weirder than that, because like it was also a commercial, right? Like it was like him just pimping things.
Yeah,
And it's
really
like, you
fucking
really,
weird.
like, let's be 100% real right now. You think Rock is drinking that energy drink? You see
No,
what
of
kind of
course he's
shape he's
not.
in? He's not
He
drinking
like
energy
cares about
drinks.
every single thing he puts into his body. Like it's probably just like water and like protein shakes and maybe some juice.
I
But there's
know,
no chemicals going in that body.
I know he does eat baked goods. I've seen him do he's like, oh, it's like, my cheat day, and he's like, I'm eating a cookie the size of my head because I need to have like 10,000 calories a day to maintain this insane muscle mass that he's cultivated. Wild. But anyway, yeah, great to see you, Rock. Insane, truly insane. The next thing I wanted to touch on, which I'm excited for the game. Steve was excited because it got him a prediction point. Stormgate is a new RTS from the folks at Frost Giant Studios, which is a new indie dev made up of a bunch of like former Blizzard folks.
Blizzard people, yeah.
Yeah, they did it's like the team who's worked on like StarCraft and a lot of the really like the cream of the crop RTS stuff. Beta is apparently coming in 2023. It's going to be free to play. And then, of course, they said no pay to win, no NFTs. Obviously, very nice for Steve there to snag that prediction point that somebody during a presentation would say no NFTs in our game. Unfortunately, a thing that needs to be said these days. But I'm actually genuinely very interested in this. I really like RTSs, but it's a genre that I've always been kind of a casual fan of. I'm not the hardcore like StarCraft competitive type player. But the idea of like a fun, like free to play game that is supposed to be new player friendly. Yeah, like I'm interested in that. I really am. I would love to catch the bug for a good RTS again because it's been a while, So that's what I'm going to keep an eye out on. I think I'm going to try to get in on the beta. You can sign up for it now. So I'm going to try to throw my hat in the ring there and see if I can get in on it.
Yeah, I'll probably check it out. It's one of my favorite genres, but space is not usually the theme I go for. I usually like stuff like Age of Empires.
Yeah.
Those are usually more my turn. And I also prefer turn-based strategy
Age of
games
Mythology, the best one?
Swords and no, Age of Mythology is the worst one. It's not in the... It's in the Age franchise, but it's not in AoE. So
it's better than AoE because...
If it was better, we'd have had a sequel.
No, that is actually not true. Okay? Because much like... See, here's the thing, Steve. I'm gonna school you on something real quick. Age of Mythology is the type of shit that I'm always the fan of, and it kills me, right? Where it's like, Age of Empires is The Simpsons, Mythology's Futurama. It's like the Dragon Age to Mass Effect of like, yeah, no, that's the more popular one, but this is the cool one. This is the cool one that they only did one of, and it's the best game ever.
I mean, go pick it up. It's on Steam. You can play it on your
I have it.
Go have fun with it.
I have it. I love that game. I replayed it in college, and you know what? It holds up. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Ensemble did some incredible games, and it was a real sad day when Microsoft shut them down. I loved that studio so much.
I would love
to. Wars.
I know they're doing a new Age of Empires. I would love to see them like really try to lean in and bring that stuff back.
Yeah, it's the new Age of Empires is by Relic, right? So it's the Sega team. I'm surprised they haven't bought them yet, to be fair.
I feel like it's going to happen one of these days. But I really hope they make a new Age of Mythology. That's one of those games where I'm like, yo, okay, we're going to bring stuff back. That's one to bring back, all right? Chew and I were talking about this. If I got hired at Xbox, first thing I would do, I walk into Phil Spencer's office, and I'm like, okay, whose palms do I got to grease to get a Viva Pinata 3? Next thing I'm working on is Age of Mythology 2. All right? So we got to look at a couple indies. American Arcadia is one that we got to look at, and then we're going to talk about that one later. Oh, wait, actually, you know what? We're not. We're going to talk about it now.
Yeah, that one's like the Truman Show. It's the Truman Show, and you've managed to escape like Truman did in the movie, and they're going to kill you because you've escaped. It's like a weird game show that you're in, and where everyone controls your life.
And it's also very, very obviously
like Inside. like a Play-Dead game.
Sure, but I just mean like the world and everything. Like it's making fun of Disney. The whole
you think? Yeah.
The whole thing is it's based on Epcot and like Walt Disney's. He did like there was like the World's Fair in New York was this big event that used to happen back in the day, and it was like everybody would come together and talk about futurism and science and technology, and that was where like Disney's view for like a utopian city was developed, and that's like what Epcot and Disney World is based off of. And the whole intro to the trailer where they're talking about that, like it's a very, very thinly veiled like nod to that, and a kind of a jab at it a little bit. So I'm interested in this one. It's got a good personality and a cool style. I'm interested in it. I want to see more of it before I'm like ready to bite, I think, but looks like a cool one. Then we got a good look at Goat Simulator 3, which we saw a little bit more over the week. I think it's fucking hilarious that they named it 3 instead of 2.
Oh, God, yeah.
I was like, wait, was there a 2 and I don't remember this? And everyone's like,
we were
no.
all so fucking confused. It was ridiculous. But I said to you, how good is that? It gets everyone to Google their game. You're just like, Goat Simulator 2, does that exist? Like, what the fuck? Why is it called 3? It was such a good idea.
They're just funny, man.
But I've never played these games. They look like goofy fun, but I feel like it's one of those games where I get bored within like 30 to 40 minutes, and I'd probably never go back to it. I'd be like, yeah, I'm done with that.
That's kind of my reading on them and why I never really got into it. But like, I liked Goose Game at that capacity where it was like a fun thing to play over the course of a weekend. I think it's a good thing to stream and stuff like that too. So maybe we check out 3. We got an update on Marvel Midnight Suns, which is apparently launching on October 7th. We got to look at some new characters, including Spider-Man, Venom, and Scarlet Witch. Spider-Man on the good guy side, the other two seemingly taken over by Lilith. I think this game is going to be so good. Obviously, I'm a Marvel.
This is an XCOM game. This is XCOM. This is by Firaxis, so it's by the people that make XCOM. So they know how to make XCOM games. This should be phenomenal.
Take it to the bank.
Every time I see Venom, he just looks so disgusting.
Yeah,
like that, like mouth and the tongue. It's like vile.
Yeah. That's why he's cool, though. You know, it's good. It's good design. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like this is such a slam dunk for me. I love tactical games. I really like Firaxis, obviously being like, if not the fucking name in this kind of genre, like they're in the top. Yeah, they're S tier, right? Like they're cream of the crop. And like I love Marvel, so like I'm in on this. I think this is going to be one of my games of the year. Honestly, by the end of the year, like I'm really stoked on this one.
Of the other 3 games launching this year.
Hey, it's a soft year. Don't get me wrong, but that's what I'm saying. I think this game has the ability to be in like my top 3 if it plays its cards right. Which, you know, fingers crossed, baby. I really, really want this game to come together and be good.
Yeah.
And it's got some obscure ass characters in it, and I really like that because it's like. Yeah, your Iron Mans and Wolverine and Spider-Man, that's cool, but like fucking like Magic is in it, and I'm like, all right, good. We're getting some fucking C-listers in this game, which is what I want. Can't wait. Glad to see that it's coming out soon. We got a look at Cuphead: The Delicious Last Course DLC coming out on June 30th. Surprising no one. It looks gorgeous. It's a Cuphead expansion. So
it looks fucking impossible. That game's hard enough as it is, and they've added like they've ramped up the difficulty. They said in the presentation, and like,
I couldn't beat the regular game. So
and, yeah, there's no way I'll be able to finish this. But I do want to go back to Cuphead and try it again.
I need to.
I played that. Yeah, I played that handheld on Switch, and I feel like maybe on Steam Deck I'd be fare a little bit better with the back paddle controls and being able to assign them to do different things. Or maybe if I just play with like a Pro controller or something, or play it on Xbox.
Steve, I've tried it so many. I played it on PC originally with an Xbox controller, and that was the farthest I got in it. I tried it again on Switch. I tried it again on Steam Deck. Game's just hard, man. It's a hard game.
Yeah, and now I've got the knowledge of like Elden Ring and Metroid behind me. Maybe I'll actually be able to get a little bit further than I did last time.
Maybe.
Because fuck, I love the music, I love the visual style, I love the concept, I love everything about this. I just find it impossibly difficult.
Yeah, Cuphead's awesome. It's really, truly a special game. So then we got some more. It's like some more quick hits. Casey Jones is revealed as the latest playable character in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. Very much looking forward to that game. Think it's going to be a good time. One to play with your buds on like a weekend or something like that. Should be a fun one. Humankind is coming to Xbox and PlayStation. I'm kind of interested in this game. I know that it came out.
Oh my god, me too.
It had like a bit of like it didn't feel like it really like caught people, but it's one that I'm interested in. I really like that kind of like Civilization game, and they have a big expansion coming to it. So we'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah, Latin America. Chewie was really excited about it. About seeing, he said his people. He was like really excited about seeing them represented, which was cool.
Which is awesome.
I love the fact that this is day and date on Xbox Game Pass, so I will definitely be trying it.
I love when games come to Game Pass. It's great. So then we got a look at Layers of Fear, or Fears.
It's Fears. The original is Layers of Fear. The sequel is Layers of Fears. It's an impossibly horrible title. They should have called it Layers of Fear 2. I loved the original game. It was like one of the early like horror genre games, like back in like 2012, I want to say. So it's like been a while since this one launched, and it was pretty scary walking around this creepy haunted house. That's always a good setting, I think, for a horror game. I love a good haunted house, and I'm looking forward to trying this one out.
Speaking of horror, we got a one last look at Supermassive's Until Dawn spiritual successor, The Quarry, which is actually out now. It's getting a lot of good buzz. I am unfortunately not going to get to play it until the first week of July. I have plans to play it with some friends, but I'll definitely be doing some coverage of it at that point. I know Steve wants to play it with his dad, so maybe we can do like a spoiler cast after we've both gotten our hands on it.
Yeah, I'll be playing probably the end of July. I can't see my family due to COVID and a few other things, but once I can get down there and see them, I'll be playing The Quarry with them.
Very excited. Very excited. Everything I've heard makes it sound like it's exactly what we've been missing from Supermassive.
Yeah, there was like one thing that Eurogamer had issue with, which is like it's got this death rewind function. And it was like broken in the build that they got, and they've promised that it's going to be patched and fixed and like tweaked and changed a little bit post-launch. That post-launch patch hasn't launched yet, but by the time we play it, it should have.
That's
so
great.
I think it's probably going to be like a 9 or 10 out of 10.
Good to hear. So then we also got the news that Saints Row's Boss Factory, which is the new character creation tool for the upcoming Saints Row game, is available to download for free now. We're planning on doing something with this at some point. I want to fool around with it a little bit. I think we might do a stream where we try to make each other or something. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah. It was really cool to see like all of the different things that you could do, and I really hope that you can carry over the characters you've created into the main game. Because what a cool idea to be able to just download it. Then when you're ready to play, you can skip all of the boring character creation, just get straight into the game, and you can spend as long as you want on this now.
Yeah, I think they have to. That has to be the plan. Otherwise, it's like, what's the point, right? And then the last thing we got of note was a new trailer for Gotham Knights. It was all about Nightwing. I really want to be excited for this game, but I'm not. I'm really wary about it. Like, if it comes out and it's good, I'm really stoked about that. Love, the Arkham stuff, and what Rocksteady and WB games have done with the Batman franchise over there. And obviously, like, Arkham Origins was divisive for a lot of people, but the people that like it really stand by it. So, like, I'm confident this team can deliver, but the whole, like, it's multiplayer, it's kind of online, there's like loot. I'm just like, I just don't know that this is what I want out of a Bat family game, but trying to reserve judgment. I want to go into it with an open mind, and hopefully it delivers. I just don't know that it's gonna hit for me.
Yeah, I know. I found the, and I know this isn't even the game, but I found the idea of a Batman game without Batman just utterly boring. Like, I don't care about the other characters. I'm there for Batman. So to be able to like play as Robin or whatever, I was like, I don't care. I'm not here for Robin. I was here for Batman.
You casual. All right, so that wraps it up for the Summer Game Fest stuff. I think, like I said, by and large, like there are a lot of good announcements here. There was stuff that was cool to see, but like not a great presentation. And I, as much as I respect Jeff, and I know that he puts together good shows sometimes. The pacing and like the fluff on these shows, I think is really the thing that like continues to drag them down. And like, as much as I know that you need sponsors and like sizzle reels for commercials, like
You know what?
that
though?
stuff
the
was
sponsors
fine.
wasn't the issue here.
No,
like,
it was
the
like
sponsors weren't the issue.
it was the celebrity nonsense. It was like just the extra fluff that like I don't think adds anything to the show. It really doesn't. Like, I don't think it's worth being like The Rock was here to have a minute of just nothing, right? Like, show me another trailer, like, I don't know. I think that
cut it and reduce the length of time. Like, it was 2 hours, and
it
they
didn't need to be
announced
2
fewer
hours.
games.
There was not
Like,
2
I feel
hours
like
of content.
Yeah, it was like on par with the number of games that Epic and Netflix like announced within their like much shorter presentations. And I don't think I want to lose all of it. Like, I liked some of the developer interviews that gave context that we didn't have in the other shows. Like Netflix Geeked, we'll get onto it, but it had an issue. I had issue with it where it was clear the presenters didn't necessarily know the games and the developers weren't there to fill in some of the details. Like, I was like, oh, it doesn't look like it's steampunk. Oh, it looks like it's maybe this and whatever. And I was just like, it would have been good if you kind of knew that when you're like announcing what the game is.
Yeah, agreed. So let's jump into Day of the Devs, which of course, is kind of like right after Summer Games Fest. This is of course, it's like I Am 8-Bit and Double Fine's baby. Tim Schafer, is always kind of like the de facto host, and it's just a great look at a nice slew of indie games from a bunch of different studios. I think this is probably, maybe PlayStation notwithstanding, I think this was the best presentation so far. It was tight. The interstitials were all just like people making a joke or two and then introducing the game and letting the devs talk and letting the game speak for themselves. And, I think that always makes for a better presentation. So we're just going to go through all the announcements of this one because there weren't that many of them, and I think they looked better. More of them looked better than not.
Yeah, I got to say, I agree with you there. Like, and maybe it's just a taste thing that there just seems to be a much wider breadth of style of game and like variety from the indies, and maybe that's just because a AAA game's a AAA game. It's going to be similar in style and aesthetic, and it's what people have come to expect from those games. But
it's also just like I think there is a weird thing with trends in gaming, right? Like, and I don't know quite what that is, right? I don't know why all these studios were
like we
on...
spoke about it with like The Last of Us and Days Gone, right? It was like, why are there two zombie games coming out at the same time?
And it's and I think there's a lot of cynical ways to look at this. Like, people love to be cynical about games and stuff, but it's like I don't think that it comes from a place of people being like, oh, there's this, from the top down, everyone's like, we got to make a horror game. We got to make a space game. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's just that, like, a lot of these studios independently had the idea to work on games in a similar genre because that's the wave right now, right? People are inspired to do it. And it's weird, and it's like, I think indie games are inherently, they have different challenges. They have different, sets of influence, and, it's just different. Indie gaming is so different than AAA, and I don't think one's better than the other. They're just different, and you're gonna.
No, I agree. But in terms of things
taste.
that excited me more, it was there.
I 100% agree.
Here.
It was a much more varied and vibrant show.
Yeah.
Even the games that weren't for me, I was like, looks really good. It's a novel idea at least. The first game they showed off was this game called Time Flies, which is called they describe it as an existential fly simulator. And you choose what country you live in, and then based on what the average age of life expectancy is in your country, you get that many seconds to explore the map. And it's like a puzzle solver, and it has like a Goose Game style kind of like list of achievements. And it was like one of the things was like get rich, and they showed how you could get inside this disco ball that's in the room and collect coins, and like that's how you achieve that achievement, right? But it's like you can fly up to like a thing of flypaper and die. You can land in a drink and die,
Yeah.
and like you just keep going and exploring. And it has like almost like a minute kind of vibe to
I
it.
was gonna say it reminded me so much of Minute because it's like you've got that such small window of time, like 60 to 80 seconds or whatever, depending on like the life expectancy, and it's all black and white. So it's like very lo-fi though. It looks like
Yeah.
someone's drawn it in like Microsoft Paint with just like the pencil tool.
Like the
And
circles
I
aren't
love
like
the
quite
style.
right. Like the
Yeah,
shapes are all like
it's
a
really
little
cool.
off. Yeah, it's a neat style. Um and again, like it's just unique. Like this is not like any other game really. Like obviously we just drew a comparison to Minute, but they're not similar at all in terms of gameplay, right? So it's interesting, right? Not one that I'm like itching for, but it's like, hey, it's novel, it's unique, it's fresh, you know? It's certainly not another space horror game, so it's pretty cool. We got to look at Planet of Lana, coming to Xbox and PC later this year. Very pretty, like pixel arty kind of style game where you play this kid. Your sibling is captured by this invading army of robots, and you meet this little like magical like cat creature, and it seems like kind of like Limbo-esque in terms of like it's a 2D thing and you're like solving puzzles to advance, and it doesn't seem like quite like Metroidvania, but like that.
No, I think it's like it seemed very linear.
Yeah,
in
but like
terms of,
that
I'm
style
moving
of
right.
game of
Yeah.
like exploring
there's
a
been
screen.
quite a lot of that. Yeah. I've played a few like that, right? I reviewed a couple when we were over at Loot Pots, and I don't know, I wasn't massively taken by the visual style on this one. It didn't strike me and stand out like something like Limbo did or Inside. It looked cool. I need to see what the story's like. I think for me, this
Yeah.
wasn't one of the standouts here, but it did look cool, and I think for a lot of people, this is the kind of game that they're looking for.
Yeah, and this was one of the ones that like I was on the fence about, and I'm like, okay, like if somebody told me this has a great story, I think I would maybe bite on it. But in general, I think it just like it looks very competent. It's pretty, like it has a very clear vision. I really like the dynamic like backgrounds. Like there's a shot where you're like running along this, dock or something, and there's like these big robots in the background. Like I like the whole natural versus industrial thing. Like it seems like it has juice. Whether or not it ends up being a game that I'm like eager to play, I could see it being one that would strike a chord with folks, and that's all it needs to do. So we gotta look at a fucking truly insane game that I know I need to play on stream, even though I really don't want to.
Yeah, you do. The Spider Train.
This game is called Choo-Choo Charles. It's an open world horror game, and the entire conceit is that you're this guy and you're like stuck on an island, and there's a small train that runs the entire length of the island, and you need to explore this island and like find resources to ultimately kill the titular Choo-Choo Charles, which is a train monster that has
with a
fucking
clown
face and giant horrifying spider legs. And he's like constantly exploring the island and like can just come up on you at any point. And if you're in your train, you have like, and you're like leveling up your train over time as you find resources, and you have like a Gatling gun and this like flamethrower and all these things you can do to like attack.
You start off with absolutely fuck all, like a knife or something,
and then
you've got to slowly level all that stuff up. Do you know what it reminded me of though? Like, do you ever remember the Resident Evil 2 remake with all the mods, and like someone replaced Mr. X with Thomas the Tank Engine? Yeah. It was very much like, oh, Thomas is coming to get you with his spider legs and clown face.
It definitely feels like it's inspired by that.
Yeah.
And like they showed up, like there's like parts where you need to get out of the train and then run out into the woods and explore. And there's these like cultists that want to feed you to Charles, and like you've got to like do the whole forest kind of like survive and keep yourself alive and keep upgrading your stuff. And then you eventually summon him and try to fight him one-on-one, and that's how you beat the game, is you got to kill him. It looks fucking terrifying. Like the part where they show you and he comes up on you when you're not in the train and you're running to the train and trying to get on and start it up, and he just catches you and wham! It's like, I was like, oh no, dude, this will give me nightmares, I'm pretty sure. But I'll do it for my art, for you, the kids. So yeah, that's one to keep an eye out for, I think, especially if that like horror survival is your jam. Looks like a really fun game. So then we got another game that I'm very interested in playing on stream. It's called Escape Academy. It's coming on July 14th to PlayStation, Xbox, Game Pass, and PC. And this is a game that is made by a team that actually was a studio that developed actual real life escape rooms, but then they also did like coin op and arcade games and stuff. And when the pandemic hit, they pivoted to make this game and kind of just create a proper escape room simulator, basically, in a game. And it's fully playable.
Yeah, really, really cool.
Fully playable solo or co-op. Definitely a game I want to play with you on stream. I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, I saw previews of this a few months back. Or maybe a month or so ago, they sent out early preview copies to the press, and I was very excited about it then. It's coming same day to Game Pass. It's definitely one I'm going to pick up.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about playing this one. I love escape rooms. I've been to a bunch of them
I've never
in
done
real
one.
life. Oh, they're so fun. They are so fun. And the thing that really stood out to me on this is that none of the puzzles throughout any of the escape rooms are the same. So you're never gonna, because when you go to escape rooms, a lot of the puzzles are the same. Like you're looking for numbers or you're looking for clues and signs, like real life escape rooms I'm talking about. Whereas in this, all of the puzzles are different, and I can't imagine the level of like research and detail and like racking their brains they had to put into every single room being a unique theme and every single room having completely unique and distinct puzzles. So it's very exciting, and you can see how they can easily expand upon this, right, with DLC and moving forwards and like adding updates and stuff. Or just like add another room that's like now there's this themed room in there. And there's like a countdown timer as well. I think you get scored based on how long it takes you to get out of the escape room, which is cool.
Yeah. I'm really interested in this one. I think it's gonna be fun to play together and just get into it and give it a shot. And that level of replayability, I think, is something that can really keep people coming back. I can see this really being popular on Twitch. So then we got a game called A Little to the Left. It reminds me a lot of like Unpacking. It's like an organizing puzzle game. Like you have these little it'll be like a desk and you need to like organize all the stuff that's there, or like cans of cat food, and like there's a cat in the game that's based on the developer's cat, and he'll come and like mess your stuff up sometimes. This seems like a cute, relaxing game.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of a game called Wilmot's Warehouse. I don't know if you've ever played it, where it's the whole thing is you're running a warehouse and you just have to organize things and then get them out of the warehouse. But it was quite cool to be able to just, like you want to color code things, or you can like, I think it's kind of entirely up to you how you lay it out, which is quite cool, which I guess is similar to that Unpacking vibes. I do like it though. I think it looks quite fun.
Yeah. I think I could definitely see this one being one that you play on like a lazy Sunday. Then we got to look at Bear and Breakfast. It's got a release date finally, coming to Switch and Steam on July 28th. We've seen this game a lot. I don't think we need to talk about it a ton. We're both excited for it. They showed more of it and more of like
a ton more,
and like a better understanding of what the moment-to-moment gameplay is, and I'm all in. It's a linear story.
Yeah, me too.
You're checking boxes and like building out stuff over time and then getting the narrative. I think that's often the thing that makes me burn out on games like this, is that like progression isn't always obvious, and like it's easy to just play and play and play.
Where you can just play and play and play for each day, but you have to figure it out yourself. Whereas there's definitely quests and missions to do.
I appreciate that.
It looks really fun.
I think that's going to help.
I'm so excited for this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is one I'm really excited to get my paws on. Pun intended.
And an amazing domain name, bear.game. So if like you're interested in this, just go to bear.game. It's an incredible domain name.
So then we got another look, or sorry, not another look. We got to look at a new game called Animal Well, which is a Metroidvania pixel art style. It's gorgeous, and it reminds me a little bit of Tetris Effect, where there's like very, very unique visual effects to like give the water depth, and like there's like these twinkling lights, and there's lighting and animation effects that the developer claimed had never been used in this way in pixel art, and I think it's really, really stunning. It's a very pretty game.
I feel like I got more Celeste vibes from it in the motion and the way the character moved and things. And just like the general like scale and layout of the levels, with like the spikes and stuff, I feel like it reminded me of Celeste. Don't know if this would be one I pick up. I'm still not 100% sure I'm a Metroidvania fan or just like a Metroid fan. I
Same.
need to get into it a little bit more and figure that out.
Yeah, the art style on this one makes me want to check it out because it's just so interesting and pretty. But we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. So we got to look at another game. I believe it was pronounced Naiad or Naiad. I can't quite remember. But it's a game where you play. They describe it as like a relaxing exploration adventure game, and you play this like river nymph that is born, and then like you have to explore down this river and like solve these little puzzles and like help fish and other animals like swim through the river, and like you learn these different techniques. It looks nice. This one didn't really do much for me.
Yeah, same for me. I was just like, okay, this is a cool experience, but
Just
I'm not that bothered about
yeah,
picking
it
it
didn't
up,
really it
personally.
didn't grab me if I'm honest.
Yeah. The
Um
next one did though.
yeah, the next one definitely did. Game's called Roots of Pacha. It has a demo out today that I am already downloading, and
Oh,
it
shit, I did
is
not realize the demo was on Steam. I'm
yeah,
100% picking that up.
baby. Gonna play that on Steam
That's
Deck.
part of the Steam Next Fest is going to spoil me because there's already like a bunch of games that
Yeah.
are out, and a Steam Next Fest hasn't even kicked off. I'm
So
going to end up with no money by the end of that.
definitely, I know, dude. I know. So this is a co-op life and farming sim. It is heavily inspired by Stardew Valley and like Harvest Moon, and you play. You're basically like have a small community during like the I mean, I'm not an expert on history. Caveman. You're a bunch of cave. It's a caveman type society, and you start at like a very base level. You have nothing, and then like you figure out like irrigation and animal husbandry, and all the things
Wait
that.
till you learn the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, shit, right? Maybe, and like you can like ride the animals, and like there's all these different like goals that you can kind of work towards to develop out a homestead basically, and like develop a town. I think this looks great. It looks really, really, really deep and interesting, and like it's a unique setting for like a farm life sim type game. So I'm in on this one. This looks really cool. So then we also got a game called Desta: The Memories Between, which is a narrative roguelike like tactics game. I don't really know what to make of it, but the whole thing was based on like memory and like based on this like narrative of like this kid and their parents and this like ball game that they played. I am hazy on some of the details, but it's from the team who did Monument Valley, and like that was their whole thing of like how do we make a really emotional like puzzle game, and it seems like it's following in those footsteps. So one to keep an eye out for, I think.
Yeah, Us Two is an incredible studio. You can buy this on Switch. I'm not sure about other consoles, but on mobile, it is one of those Netflix exclusive mobile games.
Oh.
So we'll talk more about that when we get to the Netflix Geek section.
Okay, so then we got to look at Sheem, which is a puzzle platformer where you play a little creature that can only like travel through the shadows. So it's like you're constantly like interacting with the universe to like create opportunities for you to platform from shadow to shadow. Pretty interesting. I could see myself getting into that one. And
Yeah, that
then
one was absolute standout to me, Shim.
it's
It
really
looks so
pretty.
good.
The style
Yeah,
is really,
really,
really
really
good.
pretty.
It's got like a very cool, like monochromatic, like Game Boy-esque art style almost, but like a little bit more advanced animations, obviously. Not quite pixely, more like hand-drawn, but like color-wise. It's got that very like limited palette kind of thing, which I like. Asobu is a community hub for indie devs in Tokyo, and they showed off a couple new games from some Japanese developers, like Fox and Frog Travelers, The Demon of Adashino. Adashino Island, excuse me, which is like a 3D action adventure game with like a really heavy Japanese style. Really pretty interesting looking. Not sure if it's for me. One I think I need to see a
No,
little bit
not for
more
me.
of. The next one I really, really was interesting though. It's called
Me
Goodbye
too.
World. It's a narrative game about these two indie developers like trying to make a game, and like they said that it's very influenced by like comics and graphic novels, but also games like Mother 3 and some of those like narrative RPGs. It has a really incredible style. I'm definitely picking this one up.
The visual style reminded me of what was that game that came out from Chucklefish? Like Earth. It's not Earthbound because that's Mother, but yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's got like I don't know, it has like a bit of an Undertale vibe to it for me for some reason too. I don't know, but I'm excited. I'm excited for that one.
I could see that like the start of Undertale when you're in the, or like more like the start of Deltarune where you're in the
Yeah,
house and stuff and you're
yeah,
exploring and you go to the school and things.
yeah. It's interesting. So then there's Birth, which is a solo developed point and click puzzle game. It's about living alone in a large city, and like it looks like it's mostly about like decorating your house, and it's interesting. Again, not one that really like made a big impression on me. How to Say Goodbye. It's another narrative puzzle game, and it's like about these like ghosts, and you need to like organize the map to like solve the puzzles. It looks very interesting. Again, I'm not big into puzzle games in this way, but
I love them. Those two, both Birth and both How to Say Goodbye, felt like they would be good mobile games where you could kill time by like flicking things around and moving them with your finger. I'm not sure how that would like translate to a controller or how well it would work. Like, but we'll see. I think they look quite cool. Um, More so How to Say Goodbye. Like visually, I thought that was very impressive.
yeah,
Very
it's
colorful.
got a really good style for sure. Really good art direction on that one. And then they close it out with a new track from Anamanaguchi for a platformer called Little Nemo and the Guardians of Slumberland. I'm a fucking huge fan of Anamanaguchi, so this one I've like kind of seen some promotion from it from them, but I think this game looks really cool. Like it just looks like a good like classic platformer. But I mean, the fact that Anamanaguchi did the soundtrack is like that's the reason I'm getting it.
Yeah.
I love Anamanaguchi. They are such a good fucking band. If you're not familiar, if you like chiptune stuff at all, check them out. But they did the soundtrack for the Scott Pilgrim game. Yeah, they fucking slap. They're a great band. They put out an album called USA like 2 years ago. It's their newest one. Fantastic. One of my favorite albums of the year. So cool, really cool way to end it. Really cool way to close out the show, I thought. Obviously, I'm biased.
Genuinely, I think Day of the Devs was such a good presentation. That and then Devolver, I think, were the two standouts. In terms of announcements, I think Day of the Devs had a lot more, ran the gambit a little bit more. It was really cool. But
Devolver is
was just
basically
fucking
like
funny.
a fucking Adult Swim special, right? Like it's less video game presentation than comedy show, and then they show a couple trailers, but it was a lot of fun. Chewy and I live streamed that one. You can go check it out if you want to check the whole event. I think it's worth watching for like the story and bits, and like they had a great involvement with Suda as like this weird mech host thing. Fucking really weird, but it was cool. It was a good time. We got an extended look at Cult of the Lamb. It got a release date. It's coming out on August 11th. Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Not one I think we really need to talk about that much, right? Like it's like we talked about this game a lot. We're varying degrees of interested in it. I think it's a game that's going to come out and probably find an audience. But it's one I feel like we've talked about a lot, I'm kind of just ready for it to come out at this point. So then we got to look at Angerfoot, which is it's a shooter. It looks like it probably has a VR element. We haven't been able to confirm that yet, but it's like
I don't think it does have
No?
VR. It's really weird, but it looks like it
looks
does.
like a
It's got
VR
that
game.
kind of, I don't know, that perspective that you would get from a VR game.
Yeah.
And it's like it's very weird, like camera motion when you move.
But either way,
And
like
the whole thing is you kick shit.
yeah, and
That's like
stylistically very cool. It's got this like almost like zine, like underground zine kind of vibe to it, where it's like all the characters have these weird designs and like they're like your
Yeah.
guy's skin is green and like there's like a weird alligator monster guy in like a bowling shirt and like fucking weird tentacles and stuff. It's weird, but the whole thing of it, it's from the team from who did Broforce and Gorn, and Gorn is the reason that I thought it was a VR game because that's a VR title. But essentially you've got like some very traditional guns and then some like wacky looking guns. But the big thing is that you just do these crazy kicks and you can like kick doors into people, kick barrels into people and then shoot them and they explode and you can kick enemies down and like just feels like a very high octane, like wacky, cartoonish first person shooter. It's like if that's your vibe, definitely a cool one. And obviously a team with a good track record. So, check that one out. Then we got to look at The Plucky Squire, which is a new adventure game. This is the one by, remind me of the name of the developer.
Oh, I cannot remember the name of the developer. It's James Turner. He's the former art director or
That's
Pokemon.
what I meant. Yeah, he's a former art director on Pokemon. He just announced that he was splitting off to do something independent. This was our first look at it. It looks really cool. You play this like little, like it's a character from a storybook, and then he busts out of his book and is like exploring the world of the room of the child who owns the book. It has like a real Toy Story kind of vibe to it.
100% Toy Story 5. When you like go in and it's like Sam's room, I was like, oh my god, this looks like a Pixar thing. And then when they opened the book, I was like, oh my god, this is his game, isn't it? This is James's game, because that's like the art that he posts on Twitter all the time. And it looks like there's a mix of gameplay happening in the book, in the story, and then that change of perspective where you break out and you explore the room and you're like fighting all the different toys and stuff. It looks really cool.
It reminds me of like Link Between Worlds. Where there's like shift between the 2D and 3D stuff, because there's parts where you're in the overworld of the room exploring in 3D, and then there's parts where you're like, there's obviously the storybook that he comes from, but there's like a part where you're like on a thermos,
like on a mug,
and playing a little like bullet hell type game. So very interesting. This is like just artistically very, very cool, really cool vision. Definitely want to pick up. I'm all in on this guy.
I am genuinely racking my brain how the fuck this runs on Switch, though, because it is a Xbox Series X and PS5 game. It's not confirmed to come to the last gen consoles. So at this point, stuff like that really makes me think we're getting a new Switch at some point next year, because this is due out in 2023, and I'm just like, how the hell do you get this to run on a current gen Switch?
I don't know.
I
We'll have
just
to
don't
see.
know that you can.
We'll have to see. Then the last game we got to look at was called Skate Story. You play as a demon who is made of glass and pain, and you skate through hell. And it looks like a skateboard platformer, because it looks like you're like actively trying to get to the end of a level rather than like free skating and like doing tricks and stuff. Like you can do tricks and stuff, but it looks like it's a level clear type game, and you're just going through these really cool, like fucking very strange atmospheres and like
with an amazing soundtrack in the background.
I
loved the music on this so much.
They said who the band was. I don't remember who they are, but it's like this very like indie pop, like it's really good. I love it. I think the style of it's awesome. The music sounded great. I'm not familiar with the band, but I want to check them out now. Across the board, this shoots up to near the top of my anticipated list. Very, very, very cool game. Developed by Sam Eng, one person team it looks like. So, Skate Story, check that one out too. That was a real highlight for me, I thought.
Yeah, and just that presentation in general. Like, yes, they only had 4 games to present, but they were 4 real high quality games. The Suda time was cool. I loved the like weird ass story they came up with like Mech Suda. I loved the acting. I loved like the weird jokes they were making that like
I wish I remembered
Mountain Dews merged with Annapurna.
they're making Annapurna do. I can't remember the name of the actress, but she was like the boss, and she's like the one who's in the Princess Peach costume at the end. And
Yeah.
I thought she was so funny. Like, there's a part where she's just like, of course I'm fucking right. And, like, just her delivery of everything was so intense and, like, ridiculous. I thought it was such a fun
Mm.
presentation. Nobody else does what Devolver does. And, like, we were talking about it off mic where it's like, oh, like, they went public. Like, is it going to be more buttoned up? Is it going to be like more trailers and less acting? And no, it was a longer show and it was only 4 games, but because they just wanted to do more bits. And
Yeah.
yeah, just God bless them. You know, Devolver does something really unique in games, and I do appreciate them for that. It was a fun one to check out. So go check out our VOD if you didn't get a chance to watch it. You can watch it live with me and Chewy. We had fun with it. All right, so we got 2 more to move through, and I want to go through these a little bit quicker. Just because they're smaller, frankly, and we're getting a little long in the teeth here. So Netflix Geeked was the next one. It was mostly show announcements, which I think you would expect, right? It's mostly
I don't know. Like for me, I thought it was mostly mobile game announcements.
I
Like there was
guess.
so much focus on mobile games, and then like the big things they hit on, like the Dragon Age anime, the Tekken anime, and the Castlevania anime, were like the big show announcements that I think
Yeah.
people really cared about. We also got another look at the Cuphead show again, like a slightly longer
They
trailer
talked about
for
season
season
2.
two, which is coming later this year. We only had season one this year. The fact that season two is coming out, the pace of that show, the fact that they're just chucking them out, I think it proves how popular that has been for Netflix.
Yeah. Or that the plan was always to do 2 seasons and, they just didn't stop, right? Hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, I mean, it's like there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of news of shows based on games and then games based on shows was really kind of a lot of the stuff. So Dragon Age Absolution, like you said, new Dragon Age animated series coming in December. I'm obviously through the roof excited for that. I love Dragon
Yeah,
Age.
I
I'm
thought of you as soon as they announced that. I was like, yeah, this one's for Pete.
And like I'm replaying Dragon Age right now. I'm planning on playing 1, 2, and 3. So like I'm in full Dragon Age hype right now. So this is perfect timing for me. I'm very excited about
Yeah.
this one. Hope it comes together. We got Tekken Bloodline coming, like you said. There's Shadow and Bone Destinies, which is a new narrative RPG based on the Netflix show. I've never heard of this show. I have no idea what Shadow.
No,
and
I
Bone
hadn't
is.
heard of this show. I also hadn't heard of Too Hot to Handle, which is a Netflix show based on a Netflix mobile game now, based on the reality TV dating show that's apparently really popular on Netflix, and it's a dating sim on mobile.
There we go.
Really weird. But that's coming out along with La Casa de Papel, which is also known as Money Heist outside of Spain.
Shadow and Bone is apparently based on 2 series of books in the Grishaverse, created by Israeli-American author Leigh Bardugo, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and the Six of Crows duology. Interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently they're doing a second season.
Honestly, I cared very little about most of these like licensed games, like
Yeah.
Queen's Gambit chess. Like it's a chess game with some
With a
branding
picture of the
surrounded.
actress from
Yeah,
like her as
from the
a
Queen's Gambit. I was
character.
just like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, the Money Heist game or La Casa de Papel looked quite cool. It's like a heisty mobile game with like a cell shaded look to it, where you have to do like different things. Like there's like a lock picking mini game, a safe cracking mini game. You have to like arrange the heist. There's like stealth elements, but it just looked like every single element on it would play better with a controller. It's one of those games where you have like that weird like fake joystick on the screen and you
Yeah.
like push
I
it
hate that.
around. I hate them.
It
They
doesn't
just never
work.
play well.
And then we got to look at a bunch of indie games that are like part of the Netflix like publishing initiative now, or like they're bringing out indie games to Netflix. Lucky Luna is a Japanese folklore inspired platformer from the team that did Alto's Odyssey. That's apparently coming this summer. Desta, which we talked about earlier, that's the team from Monument Valley. That's coming to Netflix this year. We have Point P, which is the new game from the creator of Downwell. That's coming on Netflix. It's actually available
It's
now.
out. Yeah, I've tried that one. This was my first attempt at like trying a Netflix game, and I thought they were inside Netflix, but they're like unique individual downloads that you can only get if you go through the Netflix app. And it downloads as a separate game, and then it like boots up. It shows the Netflix logo, and then you just pick which profile you want to play. Like it shows you your profile section as
Whoa.
if you're like Netflix,
That's
and you
so
can then like
weird.
choose who you are, and then you're just like there playing the game. Like you can just like play it as you would,
That's
and
so
it's
weird.
absolutely bizarre. Just seeing like the little Netflix face in the bottom corner at all times, but seems to work well enough. I don't know how popular this is going to be for them, but they're saying they're going to have 50 new games by the end of the year. Like they've partnered with Devolver Digital and some other publishers and developers to bring other stuff over. Like Reigns, Three Kingdoms coming over. Terra Nil is coming over from Devolver. And then Raji and Ancient Epic and Spiritfarer are coming over as well
I
to
can't
Netflix.
believe how many fucking shows Netflix puts out that I did not even. There's apparently a show based on Dota. Didn't know that. And there's a
No,
book
that's coming
three.
out.
Book
That
three
was
of
newly
it.
announced
There's two
today.
seasons
Yeah.
already. That's what the
Oh,
fuck.
really?
Yeah, it says it's book
Oh.
3 is coming out in August. That's nuts. Whatever.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and like they've got a game called Wild Things that very much just looks like a mobile game. We got to look at Sonic
Yeah,
Prime.
that was like that for me was like the most boring announcement, the Wild Things one. It was like a match three, like, oh cool. Like
Yeah,
we've
but
not
like
played this game a million fucking times. It's
people
Candy
will play
Crush,
that.
like come
You
on.
know, that's for like the Candy Crush crowd. Raji is coming as well. That's that video game that was based on Indian mythology a couple years ago. You already said Spiritfarer, and then we got Castlevania Nocturne, which is a new Castlevania show following Richter Belmont. That's coming out as well. Yeah, I think a decent amount of like legit cool announcements here, depending on like how interested you are in shows based on games and stuff. But
And mobile games. Like if
yeah,
you're a big mobile game player and you want to play games without adverts, without any of that crud, this is actually a good way to do it because most people have a Netflix subscription
right.
anyway. If they've got 50 mobile games that you can go download and play without ads, without in-app purchases, without any of that bullshit, including some real high quality titles like Spiritfarer is a phenomenal game.
Mm-hmm.
I know I absolutely had a great time with that on Switch, coming to mobile for the first time and exclusive to Netflix. If they can keep that pace and keep pulling over high quality developers from other platforms, I'm surprised some of these didn't show up on like Apple Arcade, and it just goes to show Netflix must be paying an absolute boatload of cash their way to get them to come to their platform rather than selling the game themselves or putting it on a platform like Apple Arcade or Google Arcade.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously Netflix has been having some financial troubles lately, and I can't imagine this is helping. They're like investing a ton of
But
money.
you've got to see that this is like a diversification because if you're in their platform, these games probably cost less to make or for less for them to publish than making a new season of Stranger Things, for example. But if it keeps you subscribed because you're loving playing all of these like 50 games that they've
Yeah.
got, they're going to continue to add to it. It's just an additional value proposition that keeps your money coming their way every single time.
Assuming that people connect with it in that way, which I'm not sure that they will, but I mean, we'll see, right? It's interesting for sure. I just hope that it doesn't end up hurting like Nightclub and Oxenfree, but we'll see what happens. So then we're going to close things out with a look at the Epic Games presentation, the Epic Games Summer Showcase. This was a pretty good show. I thought it was like it was lacking in bangers, but pacing was really good. They moved through things quickly, and it wasn't a slog to get through, and they actually had a good
Yeah, it was
amount.
like 20 minutes, and they had like it was packed full of announcements.
It was mostly just
None
stuff.
of them really. Yeah, none of them really stood out to me. I was just like, okay, and a lot of it was stuff we'd already seen, right? And that has been gone over. Like we saw another look at Goat Sim and Chaya, for example.
Yeah, and like then there were looks at games that are things that are like things we've seen before, right? Like Ghostbusters Spirits Unlimited. We got to look at like one of the new ghost types, things like that. Sifu, like which is coming. That's getting a summer update in August, right? Like. So Chaya, like you said, is a game we've seen a couple times. That's the one where you play that young girl and you can like control animals, but you can it's like the Prey thing of like taking over objects
like
and
become
animals
it.
and
Yeah, you mimic
traversal
it.
and everything. We talked about there was like Ooblets, which we've talked about a lot recently. So yeah,
That's at today's Wholesome Games. We'll expect
there you go.
a 1.0 announcement date today, so we'll probably talk about that when we do like a bit of an indie roundup.
Yeah, so we got some stuff like that. There was like an announcement of a new track for that Disney kart racer, Disney Speedstorm, and it's the silver screen track, and it's like based on like Steamboat Willie and like the OG, Disney shorts and stuff like that. We got to look at Rocket League Season 7 coming June 15th. Obviously, that game's still going strong. We got a new trailer for Fall Guys going free to play in Season 1, June 21st. That one's right around the corner. We got the announcement of the Fortnite Invitational 2022, which will be November 12th and 13th, and that's going to be the first in-person Fortnite esports event.
Does that ever make you wish you were good at video games? Like when the prize is like $1 million?
Oh yeah,
I'm just like, fuck. If I was good at video games, like I could earn actual good money.
I wish I was good at anything, Steve.
Yeah, that's true.
I find that I'm just good enough at most things. That's where I usually top out. But I did think I liked this. I want to call attention to this section because I think all those games were things I was expecting them to spend a lot of time on, and I appreciated that like it was really no more than a minute or two for each of them. And it's kind of like, hey, you know about Fortnite. We don't need to talk about Fortnite, right? Like,
yeah, and I genuinely thought they would focus more on their own games, more than like third party, but they didn't, and I guess they want to show off the Epic Games Store, right? They spoke about a lot of these games coming exclusively to Epic Games Store on PC. Like I didn't realize Goat Sim was going to be exclusive to Epic Games Store on PC, and I know that's a big coup for them. The original game was massive.
Yeah, so now that we got all that stuff out of the way, we'll go through the stuff that was new. We got to look at The Lord of the Rings Return to Moria, which is a survival crafting game that's going to be coming to Epic Games Store. Looks pretty interesting. That kind of game is not really my thing as much as I love The Lord of the Rings.
But like it's probably a good tie-in though for the new Amazon show, right?
Yeah, and just in general, that genre of game is super popular, right? So like there will be an audience for that game for sure. One for Macaulay, maybe PC Building Sim 2 is an open beta now. It's coming out on it's going to be live until June 20th, so you can check that out. Seems like a game that they might like. I know they like the Sim stuff. And then we've got Shoulders of Giants, which is a sci-fi roguelike. This was you play this like little frog astronaut, and he has this like cool mech that you ride on, and like the combat is a mix of like driving the mech. And then like you have like a little gun on top. It looks cute. This is one I'll keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, it was weird that title because the I know that term and I know it's like an old term, right? But that term is printed on our £2 coin. It's standing on the shoulders
That's
of
funny.
giants. So all I thought about was like, oh, it's the saying from the £2 coin.
That's really funny. So then jumping ahead, we got to look at Splitgate, which is coming to Epic Games Store with remastered maps and new modes. It's like an arena shooter.
It's Portal with guns, isn't it? That's what it is. Like you go through the orange and the blue portals, and you can like move around the map quickly, get out of danger, that kind of thing. It's a really cool concept. Definitely not one that I would ever play. I feel like I would absolutely get screamed on this game.
Then we got to look at Gigabash, which is like a kaiju fighting game. It reminds me a lot of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters back on like the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox.
It looked like a Neo Geo game that I've played as well. I can't remember the name
looks
of
really
it, but
cool.
it very much. Yeah,
This one looks fun.
No, you like that style game? Like I never really got into the kaiju stuff. I always thought it was a bit strange.
I love kaiju. I'm a big fan of kaiju in general. It looks like a fun party game. You know, like it looks like a fun game to like play with a bunch of people, have a couple drinks, pass the controllers around.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
you know, like just futzing around with it. Then we got to look at ramen, like ramen, and it's a
with the presenter Salmonella, which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, in El Pueblito, and there's a beta. July 1st through 3rd. It's like a brawler where you play these like burly dudes who are like chefs and you fight and stuff. I don't know. It looks kind of fun. Not really for me though, I don't think. I'm not really like a arena fighter type person.
No, I'm not either, unless it's Splatoon.
And then we got another look at a game similar called Rumbleverse Brawler Royale. This one's published by Epic. We've seen this before. It looks like their attempt to kind of like have a new battle royale that's not like gun oriented, you know? And it's like a bunch of different people with like different fighting styles and stuff. Again, not really for me, but I think it's one that like it's cool to see because I think the battle royale genre is kind of like starting to feel stale, and like I like the idea of people trying to be like,
I think they know that, which is why they've added a shitload more modes to Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
And it's why they diversified by buying Rocket League and Fall Guys.
Yep, absolutely. So aside from like a few other, like they had a couple like, oh, here's games coming to Epic Game Store that we don't need to go through all of them. The last big thing that they ended it out on was that they have a bunch of pretty iconic studios working on new games for the Epic Game Store. Gen Design, which is the team behind Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Play Dead, the team behind Limbo and Inside. Eyes Out, the team behind Spec Ops: The Line. And Spry Fox, the game behind Cozy Grove and Triple Town, all have games being made for Epic. So obviously Epic expanded
And I don't even think
publishing efforts quite a bit there.
It's not just I was gonna say it's not just for the store, right? They are publishing those titles, so presumably they'll be publishing them on other platforms. And I think that's a new initiative by them. I don't remember hearing about Epic Games publishing before. And I think they had like a new Twitter account and stuff that they set up. It said like follow us on like Epic Games Pub and stuff over
I didn't
on
know
Twitter.
that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because they've published other games in the past. Like that's certainly not something new for them.
It's like a new initiative, I think they're doing though.
Yeah,
Epic
that's cool.
Games Pub. It's only got 5,000 followers on Twitter. They're publishing Alan Wake 2, PC Building Sim 2, Rumbleverse. So it's like it's a new initiative they're doing.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, you know, plenty of things you can say about Epic, right? I think both good and bad. But I'm glad to see them taking all of the capital that they've earned from Fortnite and invest it into things that, you know, are new and fresh, and trying to give these smaller games a bigger stage, you know, not even just like in a presentation, but like on the Epic Game Store, and like pushing those things and being like, this is going to be the next multiplayer game you're playing. This is going to be the next one. You know, I think Epic's still got a lot of, you know, baggage that people want to apply to them, and I think that's fair in a lot of cases, but I also think that they have something to offer, and I'm interested to see them continue to try and develop like who they are and what their space is in games, because obviously, you know, engine technology is one of the big things, but they've really become
huge things,
a destination, I think, for publishing multiplayer games and giving indies and some smaller games, you know, funding so that they can, you know, get exclusivity and everything. Like, there is value in that. So it's kind of cool to see them make an attempt at a presentation like this and have it actually be pretty good.
Yeah, you know, and
We'll
they
see.
do some shitty stuff for sure, right? Like they ripped off Among Us, and they had to like backtrack that, and now they've added an official Among Us mode to the game, and like they realized they did a bad thing there. Like they're not void of crappy,
They're not good
crappy
guys,
track records,
right? They're not heroes,
but they do a lot of they do a lot of things that is beneficial for the industry, I think. And as much as people like to shit on the Epic Game Store, I think competition is always a good thing.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know that we would have seen a rejuvenated UI for Steam and a Steam Deck at the pace we've seen it without Epic kind of pushing them on and them feeling threatened and feeling like they need to diversify and get a platform of their own. And even stuff like that, I think, is only beneficial for the industry and for the consumer. And I think Epic Game Store is only going to get better. It did make me laugh how they were telling everyone to wishlist stuff in this presentation after they added the wishlist like a month ago.
Like, guys, we have a wish list now. Well, we launched this thing like 6 years ago, but we have a wish list now, okay? It's here. You know. So, yeah, criticisms about them notwithstanding, there's a lot you can say about Epic, but I think solid presentation, and I think Epic is increasingly proving that they have a space in this industry, and they have things to offer that I think make them stand out. So I am excited about that. I think this was a solid presentation, and one I was really not thinking was going to be what it was, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. So, yeah, I think overall, it's been weird. Summer Games Fest, I still don't really think it knows what it is. Like, there's all these, like, little side events that are, like, not listed on the website, but are still happening and, like, are, like, tangentially related. And it's, like,
And I feel like E3 was a little bit like that as well, though, right? Because it was, like, Bethesda was never part of it. EA had EA
Bethesda
Play.
was part of it. Bethesda was part of it.
No, they did like their own thing outside of it, didn't they?
No.
It was like EA. I know EA specifically.
EA's
did. Like,
was
EA Play was like
separate.
never.
They
was,
left
adjacent.
They left E3 and did their own event the same days in this, like, it was across the street, so you could easily go back and forth. But Bethesda's was part of E3 for the last couple of years before they were acquired. But yeah, I mean, Devolver was another thing where, like, they did it in the parking lot of, like, E3 and shit like that. So it's like, you did always have those, but there were less of them. There was, like, 6 events that we didn't cover here today. And we'll try.
I'd like to. I definitely want to do wholesome games because I'm scrolling through Twitter. So the presentation's ongoing right now as we're recording. Coffee Talk episode 2 has just been announced, and like there's a bunch of stuff in that presentation that looks incredible. And I'm aware that like the creator of Coffee Talk passed away, so I would very much like to see what he was working on before. Obviously, he did sadly pass.
And how the team plans on carrying that torch. But yeah, I think overall, like, there was a lot of good stuff. There were good announcements here, and I think some of these presentations have been solid. Particularly Sony's, I think, has been the standout so far. I think Xbox is ready to eat their lunch on Sunday, though, and I hope they do. I really want Xbox to come out and be like, yeah, that was cute or whatever. Here's S rank, like, let's fucking go. But
Sony's was so strange. Like, I'm so surprised they kept The Last of Us for Jeff's like end of the thing, right? Because they had no
big whammy
first-party titles for PS5.
We said that was the thing that was missing. If they had that, I think it would have been like, oh wow, this is a really solid presentation. But I think it
wouldn't have got leaked.
I think it speaks to what they think of State of Play, that they don't think of it as being that. But you know, whatever.
Which is weird because it could be if they wanted it to be.
Yeah, they're the ones that decide that. But whatever. I think by and large, this has been a little bit better maybe than last year in terms of it feeling more organized, but I still feel like it's
far better.
It's so all over the place though. Like and you know, obviously pacing with the Summer Games Fest live being what it was, like, you know, people talk a lot of shit about E3. They talk a lot of shit about the ESA, rightfully so, on the ESA part anyway. I gotta say I miss the organization. Like, I'm frustrated
I think
that
some
things
of it,
are still being
comes
announced.
I think some of it comes from the fact that E3 fucked everyone around again this year, and it was like, oh, we're doing one. We're going to do a digital event, and then it was cancelled. So it's just like everyone's scrambling and being like, okay, well, do we do our own thing? Do we not bother? Do we become part of Jeff's thing? Like, do we even have anything to show? Because we've been working on stuff, and it's like delayed. Like, what do we do? And like, Nintendo hasn't even announced anything yet, but I'm pretty convinced that next week we're going to get a direct, or at least an announcement for a direct. And it's just, it really is frustrating not to know where you stand. But at the end of the day, I've come away from Summer Game Fest this week, and we haven't even seen the Xbox event yet. Really excited as to what this year and next year has in terms of games. Like, there was at least 5 or 6 games that I'm just like, wow, that looks incredible, and I'm really excited to play it. And I think we're only going to see more as the weeks come, and as I finally am able to catch up with some of the smaller indie events that have been going on.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really cool stuff, and I think you're right. Like, I've come away with more I'm interested in than not. I think it's more just me being frustrated by the format and the fact that, like, I liked that going into E3, we had a schedule and we knew what was coming, and it was very easy to set expectations and plan coverage. And it's like, there's been events.
It would be really nice if there was one channel that you could go to and watch it all on, and it's not like, this is on the Xbox account, this is on Devolver's one, this is on Twitch Gaming.
I don't understand why the Game Awards channel doesn't just co-stream everything. Like, I should be able to watch it all in one location. So that's the thing is, I think Summer Games Fest has a lot of promise to become the replacement for E3 that we need, but I still don't think it's quite there. and I want it to be already. Like, I want to see it hit that.
Maybe next year's the time, because apparently it's going to be more of an in-person event as well as streaming. So Jeff's really going for the jugular,
especially considering
on
E3 claims that they're doing an event next year, and it's like, no,
well,
you're
we'll
fucking
see.
not. No, you're not. No one's gonna. No, I think Jeff is ready to put the nail in the coffin next year. So, I hope you're right. I hope that next year is the year where it really comes together. I hope that Jeff figures out the pacing more. I do think this year's shows were better than last year's, but last year's were slapped together, and this had a lot longer lead time, and I was hoping it would be further along than it was. But, I think there's promise. I think it has the ability to get to where we want it to be. It's just a matter of if it will. And I think next year is going to be a really good signifier, because once you got a couple under your belt, you've gotten more and more people to buy in on it every year. Hopefully that's enough to allow Jeff to have a little bit more control and be able to have it be more that cadence that I think we're used to. But
I
definitely
I
a marked
think you're right, and he's managed to get people to come to this that haven't been to E3 in years. Like PlayStation were here. They gave them an absolutely monumental announcement, and it's nice to see them back in the summer announcing big games. So I think so far it's been great. I'm looking forward to catching up with what else has been announced and what will come. But yeah, we'll see when Xbox has their presentation tomorrow.
Agreed. Clearly the one to watch, right? I think right now, for my money, Sony's top dog, and I think Xbox clearly has the juice to easily dethrone them if they want to, right? We almost talked about it today. Xbox put out like an entire presentation's worth of information on Twitter and like Xbox blog posts and stuff. So like, I hope that means that they really have something special to show us, and that they're ready to like give us a look at Starfield, give us a look at, Forspoken, or not Forspoken. What's the one I'm thinking of?
Avowed.
Yeah, and some of these other games that like we've gotten trailers, we've gotten glimpses of, but we don't really know.
Yeah, haven't they got that Indiana Jones game that's in development? Or something?
Machine Games I think is doing that.
It's like crazy amount of stuff they've got to show.
So I hope they're ready to come correct with some bangers and cement themselves as the de facto winner of this year. Because often, in E3's past, it was usually like, who's top dog this year? Is it Sony or is it Xbox? And like maybe it's Nintendo, but not usually. So I hope Xbox is ready to be like, yeah, state of play, that's fine, whatever. Xbox Bethesda showcase, let's fucking go. That's the hope. But anyway, thank you all for joining us here on another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. Thank you for tuning in for all of the coverage. Thank you for coming to the live streams. Thank you for joining us here on this Summer Games Fest. We will be back tomorrow with our live stream of everything from the Xbox Bethesda showcase. We'll be doing a debrief on that. I assume we will try to sneak in another podcast where we talk about all the other stuff that we missed. We're going to do the best we can to cover as much of this stuff as we can, so make sure you keep it tuned here. And we will catch you. One more thing. FlipScreen.games. That's where you get all the links. Patreon, Discord, all that stuff. Show your support however you choose to. We appreciate you. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We've been FlipScreen Games. We'll see you tomorrow. There's no end card here because we're doing this as a live recording. So this will be the part.
We'll be here for 7 more seconds.
This is the part on screen. There'll be some buttons that you can click. Subscribe. We have a sister show, Nintendo Noise, all about Nintendo. You can go click on that. Click on some stuff. See, it's probably near my finger here somewhere. Steve, you point that way now. Like point towards opposite.
Okay.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah. Click that button, everybody. Bam. Okay. See you later.